Welcome to Verge News, where we delve into the latest updates on immigration, policy, and global education. Today's episode covers a significant development: the federal government's decision to halt $400 million in grants to Columbia University over allegations of inadequate action against anti-Semitism. Joining me as always is Samuel. Let's dive in.
Thanks, Victoria. This story has far-reaching implications, not only for Columbia University but for higher education as a whole. On March 7, 2025, the Trump administration announced its decision to cancel nearly $400 million in federal funding to Columbia. This is tied to an anti-Semitism investigation that's scrutinizing the university's handling of incidents targeting its Jewish community.
That's right. Federal officials cited non-compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination in institutions receiving federal funds. It's part of a broader effort led by a task force under the Department of Justice to combat anti-Semitism, following incidents on campus after the Hamas attacks on Israel in October 2023.
Exactly. The investigation specifically looked into student protests and building occupations last spring, which allegedly caused intimidation and harassment of Jewish students. Officials stated that Columbia's response to these incidents was insufficient, prompting this comprehensive review into its use of federal funds.
The immediate impact is certainly striking. Over $51 million in federal contracts with agencies like the Departments of Justice and Education have been frozen. But looking deeper, this review also affects more than $5 billion in ongoing commitments the university relies on for research, infrastructure, and other essential projects.
That's a staggering figure. What stands out here is that the suspension doesn't just impact Columbia alone. Universities like Harvard, NYU, and UC Berkeley are also being investigated under this broader initiative. If they're found in violation of Title VI, they could face similar consequences.
It's a wake-up call for many U.S. institutions. The Education Secretary, Linda McMahon, reinforced that federal funding can only resume if Columbia demonstrates full compliance with civil rights laws. This puts immense pressure on the university to deliver meaningful and swift policy changes.
And it's not just about policy. The federal task force emphasized tangible outcomes. Leo Terrell, who leads the initiative at the Department of Justice, declared this funding freeze a first step in combating anti-Semitism within academia. He pointed at the damage these incidents caused to campus unity and the need to protect students' rights.
While many support this approach as necessary to enforce accountability, others have raised concerns. Critics argue that this level of federal intervention could threaten academic freedom. The balance between combating discrimination and preserving open dialogue on campuses has come under debate.
That's where it gets tricky. On one hand, you have a real need to ensure inclusivity and protection for vulnerable groups like Jewish students. On the other hand, universities are also spaces for diverse thought and activism. The question is how to address conflicts without overstepping boundaries.
Columbia University has responded cautiously so far. They acknowledge the investigation and emphasize that they're dedicated to combating anti-Semitism. Part of their strategy includes initiatives like a task force on anti-Semitism and listening sessions with students and staff.
But critics say such measures might be too little, too late. Reports from those sessions mention verbal abuse, harassment, and even physical threats against Jewish students. The real test for Columbia lies in whether they can implement preventive, not just reactive policies.
And until those changes are clear, the university faces not only financial challenges, but also reputational risks. Losing federal support for major research projects could hurt its standing globally, deterring students and impacting its partnerships.
Which could set a lasting precedent for other universities under scrutiny. Institutions like Harvard must now evaluate their own policies to avoid similar penalties. The ripple effects of this case are undeniable.
Ultimately, this decision underscores the federal government's growing willingness to use funding as leverage to enforce civil rights compliance. Whether it reshapes higher education's landscape remains to be seen. For now, Columbia's case is a compelling example of accountability at work.
Absolutely, and we'll be watching closely as this unfolds. For listeners interested in updates or more context, visit visaverge.com. This is an evolving conversation with profound implications for academia and beyond.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Again, for more immigration and education updates, visit us at visaverge.com. Until next time, take care.